Hey everyone, welcome to Oil Camp and my kitchen. Today I am going to be teaching you how to do a very simple do-it-yourself recipe for a Breathe Salve. And Breathe is also known in Canada as Easy Air. So if you hear Breathe from the United States warehouse, it is exactly the same oil, same blend of oils that you would get called Easy Air from the Canadian warehouse. So those two are interchangeable. It's exactly the same oil. Whether you purchased your oils from the US warehouse or the Canadian warehouse, that's the only difference. So Breathe or Easy Air is a great oil to open our airways and really helps support our respiratory and our lung health. And it also helps to support symptoms of seasonal discomfort that we can experience many times throughout the year. And as a mama of two, I have a 6 and a 3-year-old, this is a salve that I can use not only on myself and my husband, but safely and effectively on them as well to support their little bodies. So I really want to show you this. It's very easy to do. First, start with 2 carrier oils, and I used, for this particular recipe, I used coconut oil solid at room temperature, and I used a grapeseed oil. However, you can use any carrier oil you want. So you could even use a fractionated coconut oil, you could use an avocado oil, you could use an almond oil, whatever you have on hand that you want to use would be fine for this recipe. What I did is I took 1/4 cup of the coconut oil and 1/4 cup of the grapeseed oil, and I put that into a pot, even just a small pot, on the stove. I put that on a very, very low heat and let that melt. Again, you want a low heat because you don't want to burn, like especially with coconut oil, it smokes. It's a very low heat oil. So melt those 2, and then what I did is added about 1.5 teaspoons of beeswax. I just use a yellow beeswax that I get from a health food store here in my local city of London, Ontario. So anywhere from 1 teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of beeswax, and the less obviously you use, the softer your salve will be. The more you use, the stiffer your salve will be, so kind of gauge it based on your preference. Then I added, this is just vitamin E oil, so I added 1/2 teaspoon of vitamin E oil to my salve. And what I did is just mix that, let all the beeswax melt, and then I left the pot for about 25 minutes to cool down back to room temperature. So it brought the heat down. You don't want to add your essential oils to this recipe when it's still really hot, and that's because the oils are volatile and they will evaporate with high heat, and then you lose all your health benefits. So make sure that your salve, maybe not room temperature, but just it really cooled down, and I left it for about 20 to 25 minutes. After that, I added 15 drops of Easy Air or Breathe if your oils came from the US warehouse. And I would say for this recipe, anywhere from 10 drops to maybe 18 would be your max. And again, if you're primarily going to be using this for children, you'll want to stick with the lower end of the scale for that. But I find for myself, for my husband, and for my kids, 15 seems to be a great number. We use oils in our daily lives all the time. So I put 15 drops in there. Mix that up, and then I have these little jars that I got. I believe in the dollar store sells these. Make sure they're glass because you don't want the essential oil to break down the plastic. So these are little glass jars. I think they cost me about $1 each. And I just take my salve and I pour it in there, and then it solidifies. So you can see that's solidified now, and it made 2 jars. So that recipe, about 1/2 cup of oil with 15 drops of essential oil, some vitamin E in there, and some beeswax, and it made 2 jars. So I just also want to stress cost effectiveness of this. If you're using this instead of a comparable product that you would use for respiratory support, and I know that might be something like a Vicks Vapor Rub, you can imagine how cost effective this is when I think each jar of this would be, I don't have an exact number, but I'm confident to say it's less than $2. So a bottle of Easy Air, and I'll talk Canadian pricing here, is about $34 retail or $25.50 wholesale pricing, and you could make about 30 of these with one bottle of Easy Air. So you can imagine very, very cost effective way, and you know that your Salve doesn't have any of the synthetic components that I know me personally I'm trying to get out of my house, get rid of, and make sure that my kids have the most natural way to heal their little bodies as possible. So super simple, and that's it, all done, and really no mess as well. So hope that's helpful. Try it out and tell me what you think. Bye guys.